Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And so, if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, of course, like I said, this is a weekly fighting roundup. We're going to have the boxing and MMA news. This is, of course, been the festive period, so there's not really been too much happening. There is a bit of boxing news, a bit of MMA news. Not really many fights have happened, just mainly kind of news of fight dates and things like that. But I still thought I would come fill you guys in on what's been happening, and yeah, in general, just kind of go for a bit of a smaller, I suppose, uh, episode, I suppose, of a weekly fighting roundup. I do this all year round, and yeah, this is normally the more quieter time of the year. But moving to the boxing news to start off with, of course. So Catterall will fight Barboza Jr. February 15th. That is Catterall returning after Eddie Hearn campaigning for him to get this world title fight. They're calling out Teofimo Lopez. They're calling out a lot of the big names after his last win. And to be honest, I didn't really ever think that the win versus Prograis was gonna then, push him straight into a world title fight. Perhaps, the progression he's been on, he could have deserved it. You could make the state the claim for him deserving it. But this Barboza Jr. fight, I think, is a good fight. He's coming off the win versus Ramirez, and that was a good win for him as well. And so, a returning good win for him after a performance versus McComb where he really didn't look the best, and a lot of people thought he lost. So I think this is going to be a good fight, and a much more liver, I suppose, even more liver than the Prograis fight to fight for Catterall, and yeah, another good home fight for himself. TKV will fight Webster February 1st. Lopez is set to fight Matias March 15th. So, it seems like Lopez is probably going to stick around the super lightweight division. There was talks of him going to fight Terence Crawford. Seems like that's probably gone now. There was, other fights available to him. Him versus Ennis was talked about. That's probably gone as well now. So, there was talks of him going to welterweight. Not to say that's never going to happen, but just maybe not at the moment. So for now, we've got Lopez possibly against Matias. Matias is coming off a win. He went away and got a win in a kind of a home type show, but he is, of course, recently had that loss versus Paro, which, to be honest, after the Hitchens performance for Paro, which wasn't a bad performance, but it wasn't the best performances, hasn't aged well. But Matias is still a very tough guy, and I'm sure he's going to be even more wanting of revenge at the highest level because of what the defeat he suffered. So, that would still be a great fight. Davis has said the fight versus him versus Martin is off. He said it on Instagram, and perhaps it's going to be off. We're going to have to wait and see. For everybody who's a fan of Davis, I'm sure they're going to be hoping that it's not off. But like I say, we'll have to wait and see. It's just an Instagram thing at the moment. I'm sure everybody's going to be wanting to see Davis fight. It's not the biggest of fights. It's not the fight in which everybody was really wanting, but it was still had a good build-up after the first press conference, and it was still what people were keen to see. But, like I say, we're going to have to wait and see if it actually does happen. Moten is set to fight February 1st. His Excellency wants to make Usyk versus Dubois and Fury versus Joshua in 2025. So even though Joshua versus Usyk, no, not Joshua, Fury versus Usyk, that second time was a very close fight, and possibly, in my opinion, even closer than the first fight, we're probably not going to see the trilogy of that next. Perhaps if Fury is to beat Joshua and Usyk is to beat Dubois, we might see a trilogy, and I'm sure nobody's going to be against that. But I respect His Excellency not really wanting to just continually make the same matchups and recycle things over and over again, even though Usyk and Dubois is recycled. Everybody thinks Dubois has changed since then. So this fight, if it does happen versus Usyk, we'll really see if he has changed, see if anything's really different about him. And so, yeah, and Fury Joshua, of course, is the fight in which is still a huge fight. And like I was mentioning in my Fury Usyk prediction, was a bit of a safety blanket for Fury if he was to lose versus Usyk. Not to say that he fought badly at all, to be honest, but it was there, and I always thought that fight would be there. And so, no matter what, both fighters kind of knew that that fight probably would end up happening at some point, and so probably next year we will see Fury versus Joshua. And Ngannou has called out Fury. To be honest, I just don't see it happening. He's called him out, but I just don't see it happening again. Mold, Akbar, Dixon, Hardy, Nadim, Ahmed, Nemhard, Hussein, and Booth will fight February 7th. Rafferty will fight Macmillan February 8th. Lopez versus Castillo and Aguiar versus Baez will fight January 24th. Cardenas versus Acosta and Martinez versus James will fight February 8th. Ayacuzo will fight Letty January 8th. Priest will fight Howard January 23rd. Nakatani versus Selua. Sutsumi versus Higa and Nasukawa versus Maloney will fight February 24th. It's great to see Nakatani back again and against a tough Mexican. He's going to be, in my opinion, probably one of the toughest testers in recent times for Nakatani. He's gone for everybody pretty much with flying colours as of recent, but perhaps hasn't been tested the same way in which I think something like a Selua might test him. He's highly ranked, he's a Mexican, I believe he's unbeaten, and so yeah, I think it's going to be a tough test for Nakatani, perhaps going to show something a little bit different, like I say, from what he's used to in recent times, and I think it's going to be a tough test. Sutsumi versus Higa, I think it's going to be an excellent fight. Higa was unfortunate not to win the last time that he fought for a world title, and was very close in that aspect to doing that, and so I'm glad that he's getting his second opportunity to fight for a world championship, fight for the belt, and Sutsumi had that really good fight with Takuma Inoue last time out and got that surprising upset victory. And if it's anything like that fight, and same with anything like Higa's last fight, I'm sure the stars going to gel and it's going to be a really excellent performance or a really excellent fight. And it's really nice to see Sutsumi wanting to take these tough tests early. I wasn't sure if he's going to get the rematch with Inoue kind of pushed because Inoue has that big name behind him, but I'm glad, to be fair, that it's somebody a bit different, and I like Higa as a fighter. And like I said, I feel like he was unfairly treated. I believe it was against Takai, where it was a very close fight, and I think this just makes for an excellent fight. Again, Nasukawa though, getting moved very quickly. To be honest, I like a lot of the other Japanese fighters, but of course with the stature in which he has, this is a very tough fight to take. Maloney, I respect him for even being willing to take it. I think he knows that perhaps that's where the money is in the division, and that's where the main route, if he is to get back to a world championship, is because the Maloney brothers took quite a big hit last year, or this year, the earlier part of this year, when they both lost. And I think Maloney, perhaps he might have something still more to give. He's a very tough world title challenger. He probably is deserving to only fight really at a world level. So he's really going to test if Nasukawa is at that world level. I think Nasukawa is improving with every fight. I think he still has bits to improve on. This fight is definitely going to show it. I think it is a very good test. Perhaps too early for Nasukawa, but we're definitely going to have to wait and see. He could put on that statement performance in which he has the hype, he has the fans, he has the presence about him to do that. Will he do it? We'll have to wait and see. Montgomery has joined Overtime. Tudsbury, Bellotti versus Gomez Jr. and Middlemiss will fight February 15th. Blancos will fight February 1st. Moses has joined Matchroom. Bamba has unfortunately passed away. It was a very surprising news to hear that he'd unfortunately passed away. He just recently signed a promotional deal with Neo, which was a big surprising thing in the first place, and we weren't too sure why Neo was getting into boxing, but Bamba had kind of gone away from the misfit scene and really been fighting quite a lot, and he became a WBA Cruiserweight champion, WBA Gold Cruiserweight champion, and had fought, I believe, like 13, 14 times in the year. And so, I don't know if that's had anything to do with it. I don't know if it was released, how he passed, but unfortunately, thoughts go out to his family. And yeah, it's always sad whenever you see a fighter unfortunately pass, most probably from boxing of some due to some sort of injury or something that's been picked up from boxing. But yeah, rest in peace, Paul Bamba. Moving on, Levars will fight January 25th. Terra Moana will fight Otobo January 8th. Padabsari won via majority decision versus Canizales to become WBC World Light Flyweight Champion. And to be honest, I apologise for not doing a prediction for this one, to be completely honest. I didn't really realise the fight was happening until it had happened, and Pradabsari, I haven't been able to see the footage, I haven't been able to find the footage, but Pradabsari back as a world champion. I believe that is Taraji's old belt, in which Pradabsari had now fought for. Pradabsari, a legendary fighter, and has really achieved a lot in his career, and that's a big belt to pick back up again. And so against Canizales, who has also fought at a high level, and I'm sure it was a great fight for majority decision, but yeah, I would try and keep doing my research, see if I can find any footage of it. But yeah, for Dabsbury, congratulations to him. Like I say, becoming back as a world champion again. I'm not sure if he ever thought that would have happened in his career, the way that things were going with it. Just getting on the older side, just a legendary Thai fighter. But yeah, just like I say, getting on the older side. So, congratulations to him and full credit to him. Crawler will fight February 15th. Till versus Taylor, Mitchell versus Hench, Plemons versus Warrior, Jade versus Shaw, Hamed versus Johnson, Bevo versus Dionysius, Brooks versus Gavinio, and Gareth versus Hatt will fight January 18th. And, it's not the biggest of Misfits cards. It had, of course, Tommy Fury versus Till, which, to be honest, was building up as a really good fight. And, as a Misfits fan, I've done predictions for all the fights, and I know it's not pro boxing, and it doesn't go into it too much. Maybe it does a bit too much, but like I say, it's not pro boxing, really. A fight like Till versus Fury, I think, made perfect sense. It's just weird what's happened with Fury and all the reason why he made to pull out and everything like that. So, I just find it a bit weird. But Taylor's going to be a tougher fight for him. It's probably going to have a less entertaining build-up. I know Taylor likes to talk, but it's just not as entertaining to watch him, get held abuse by Till from. But yeah, the rest of the card is quite poor, to be honest. I mean, obviously Plemons was meant to fight HS, but HS can't really seemingly come into the country at the moment, so that's not happening. And the rest of the fights aren't really any big names or anything like that. So I think it's just a bit of a washed Misfits event. There's not been too many great ones this year, and we're starting off next year, we're not with the best, to be honest. But I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see how Darren Till does back in boxing. Zepeda may rematch at Farmer next. We'll have to wait and see. De La Hoya has said perhaps that might happen. That's definitely slowed down the progress of William Zepeda. Of course, it was a great fight, and to be fair, Farmer did very well and really surprised a lot of people, and Zepeda was perhaps shown up a little bit, but it would be nice to see a rematch for Farmer's sake, who's really served the boxing sport well. It would be nice to see a rematch be made, but like I say, we'll have to wait and see. Paul is set to fight McGregor. Is that going to happen? Rumoured in India for 2025 for 250 million. That would be crazy. There's a lot of rumours always with Mayweather and who he's going to box. Same with Logan Paul as well. If either of them are going to do it, 250 million would make sense. Just what's going on with McGregor's UFC contract and everything like that, I'm not too sure. There was rumoured to be some sort of announcement coming soon, but like I say, we'll have to wait and see. Nothing concrete, just a rumour. Moving on now to the MMA news. Pyfer will fight Wiley December 28th. That is just in a grappling match. Royval will fight Cape March 1st. Nice fight, to be honest. The flyweight division is really kind of lacking and really needing some new names coming through. And Cape has been there for a little bit now, but has slipped up on a couple of occasions. Of course, the Makayev fight was a bit of a lackluster fight, and of course he lost that one. And now he's coming off a good performance last time out, where he's really kind of showing off his skills and really just having fun with it, to be honest. And it did look good, and that's the Cape in which we kind of want to see, and that's the Cape in which we know he has the ability to show. And Royval is a great fighter. He's proven himself at a high level of, at the top level realistically. And so I think that's a great fight that makes sense, that gives the opportunity to somebody like Cape to come through the rankings if he is able to beat somebody like a Royval. Moving on, Nurmagomedov versus Oliveira, Naimov versus Offley, McKinney versus Hadzovic, Grad versus Alexander, Abdu Wahab versus Pogs, Gaziev versus Peterson, Levitt versus Al-Selwadi, and Pavlovich versus Rosenstreich, and Alaskarov versus Muniz will fight February 1st. That's filling up the Adesanya Imavov Fight Night card, which, to be honest, is looking like a very good card. Barboza versus Garcia, Vieira versus Chiasson, Blades versus Kuniev, and Silva versus Baghad Ryan will fight February 22nd. Perry wants to fight Lawler next. I think that would be a great fight. I'm just talked about in BKFC. I'm not sure if that would happen. I mean, didn't Perry get stripped because he lost to Jake Paul? I'm not too sure he got kicked out of BKFC or not, but he also has his dirty boxing, so we'll have to wait and see. That could happen there. Haddam will fight Topuria February 8th. That is Topuria, Ilya Topuria's brother, coming into the UFC now, so that's a new name, and of course, having that brother's shadow that he has to try get out of, and we'll have to wait and see. He's coming in with a tough test to start off with. Ribovics will fight Hak Parast March 1st, and Brady won by submission versus Martinez, again in a grappling match. He called out Leon Edwards to fight in the London UFC Fight Night headliner. Perhaps that could happen. I wouldn't be against that fight, but I like how these fighters go to these grappling matches to kind of, learn and keep developing and keep showing their skills and get eyes back on them again. Perhaps when they have a little bit of time out and or if fights aren't really making sense for them to come into the UFC for. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like I say, not a massive roundup today, but yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.